I got things warming up to do a run of a back 40 Mini Firewood oak this morning, and I thought I was going to be fancy, and it's already backfired on me. And what I mean by that is I had this pallet of all these blocks that I brought over here, and I set them on top of those two pallets, and I thought I had it centered and balanced, but I had it a little too far forward, so when I pulled the forks out, this whole thing tipped over and spilt everything down on the floor. But I'm just going to load them up from there, pick them up, put them in the Kindlet 200 here, the Fuelwood Kindlet 200 from Wolf Ridge. So now the other thing that I'm doing that's a little bit fancy, and this is for all of you people out there in the OEE, the online efficiency experts, not to be confused with OPP, but the OEE, the online efficiency experts, you guys are going to like this. So I brought over the Wolf Ridge 16-foot belt conveyor, and I've got that right at the end of the Kindlet, so I'm going to be able to take the finished splits, throw them on the conveyor. I'm going to run the conveyor down into the baskets for the micro kiln, and when I fill up this basket, I'm going to swap it out with this basket right here, and when I get both of those baskets full, I'll start up the kiln and we will heat treat and possibly need to dry this oak down a little bit. So we're going right from splitting right onto the conveyor in to the kiln basket, right into the kiln. So we're eliminating the step of putting it into a bag and then storing the bag and then bringing the bag back out and dumping the bag into the basket. We're eliminating all that. So we'll be as efficient as we can. I know that I'm going to need to stop the Kindlet. I'm going to have to slow things down, take a break, possibly even shut it off, just because there's no way for me to keep up sorting out the finished mini splits, putting them onto the conveyor, and then also keeping the infeed fed for the Kindlet. So picking the blocks up off the ground, putting them in, and taking the finished splits, putting them on the conveyor. I don't think I'm going to be able to keep up by myself, so we may lose a little efficiency there. So both of the baskets for the micro kiln are now full, and besides the little hiccup in the beginning with the pallet tipping over, and besides not being able to keep up feeding the Kindlet or taking the wood out from the end of the Kindlet and separating it, or even keeping up with the fact that the basket got too full from the conveyor. So besides all that, I think it was a pretty successful production run this morning. Everything went pretty smooth. It went good. I still have these chunks left over, and there's a couple still in the Kindlet that I'm running through. And separating this stuff out, like I get some of these pieces in there. This is what I call JB Brown wood. JB, if you're watching, this is probably going to be coming your way. JB likes taking and getting all of my uglies, my rejects, the misfits as he calls them. So I separate those out. I'm going to set those aside for him. But you know, just like this stuff right here, like I used to always run all this right into the bag, and then I would end up having to either separate it out when I put the wood in the kiln, or after the kiln run, I would have to separate this stuff out before I packaged it. And taking it out now just saves space in the basket for the kiln, and it also you know, just improves the end product because I don't have all that mixed in. Now, if I was just making kindling, I could just run all of this into bags because this stuff, you know, is perfect kindling, and it would just mix in. I mean, I'd probably be splitting my main splits a little bit smaller if I was just making kindling. But for the mini firewood, like this is the end product. This is what I want. And so I've just found now with having this little setup, and now, I don't know, I'm not gonna have this very much longer, but for now, having this setup where I can just, you know, send everything off there, and I don't have to, I mean, I could, obviously I could put those kiln baskets right here, but for demonstration purposes of the belt conveyor, I think it worked out pretty good. Just be able to toss these pieces down there, and right up the conveyor they went into the basket. And like I said, I think the basket filled up quicker than I thought, and then the basket right to the kiln. What would be really cool is if I could eventually get a setup where I have a little conveyor that would just feed the baskets and have the kiln sitting where I could actually feed the basket right into, or feed the wood right into the kiln, because that first basket, when it was filled up, it was kind of heavy. But luckily I run steel, so it wasn't too much of a problem for me to, as a man, pick that up and move it over here. But don't get me wrong, it was still heavy. I don't know if the Echo or Husqvarna guys could have been able to pick that up. So yes, I could have the baskets just sitting over there at the end of the Kindlet, and that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. The other thing is, though, sometimes, like this wood probably does need to season a little bit, so I'm going to have to run it in the kiln a little bit longer. But if I wasn't running it into the kiln basket, I could then just have the bags hanging here and just, you know, toss it into the bag. Conveyor was nice though, to send it on down the line. So that is going to do it for now. I'm going to finish running the rest of this oak, and then I'll probably just set that aside. And then when this run is done in the kiln, I'll take that out, and then I'll put the rest of that stuff in. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Stay safe, have fun, and be cool.
I've been a real bad boy on the town all night. Starting